Dark spit runs down a glass pane in the old house. Grown a bit, Flo grabs her bag and heads out the grey door, down the street and past the sign. 2 years till school ends, she ends it now. Walk out on the step, kin turn to the street, where she will meet a Fraw Morn and a school pal who shows her the bus route out of town and through the next few. Once the day sets its mid, the pal points to a stop and drops her off while he stays on the bus and moves on. His eyes look and then move on. He told her of a place she can hide for a time, out back of where his kinman lives. The kinman knows and will not care if she is still and makes no noise and is not seen. The place is an outhouse with a few rooms, and the light is grey. Outside there is grass and trees, a fence with bird-fat balls, not 8 but old. The couch is clean and snug with sheets, and she puts her bag down and has a sleep. An excerpt there from the section called "The Kinman Shows His Bones" from Rebecca Gransden's novella Figures Crossing the Field Towards the Group. This was published by the Tangerine Press this year and was brought to my attention by the author herself, Rebecca Gransden, who was kind enough to send me a review copy. This is a short, strange, hypnotic, subtly mythological post-apocalyptic novel or novella set in a dissipating and dissolving England. There's nothing brash about this apocalypse or collapse. And the plot itself is flowing and ethereal and finds our protagonist, a young girl, sort of wistfully moved along between set pieces and scenes with characters and events that seem to already be dissolving into the world of this novella. The plot itself is, as I've said, we're in a post-apocalyptic England, in a kind of strange mythological delirium where some things feel as if they're returning, other things feel as if they've completely gone, and people are all dealing with it in their own way. But the way in which they're dealing with it is emphatically not materialistic. We're not focusing on any of the material signs of this idea. We're focusing on how myth emanates and burgeons back, and how nature returns, and how those things return in the human mind, and what the human, whatever that might be, maybe as an animal, becomes in the wake of these things. Needless to say, it's a sort of an event of unknown provenance, a mass of red spreading north from the southern counties, and our protagonist, a young girl, sets out on her journey. She basically encounters various eccentric and strange and lost characters who have been left behind in the wake of a widespread evacuation in an England that seems to be held in that rarely touched upon moment of apocalyptic literature, which is the in-between between the burgeoning signs of breakdown and the full new civilization or new order that arises. We are caught in an in-between and watching what happens to minds and to lives and to meanings when they themselves, in a mandatory sense, have to deal with an ethereal sort of existential breakdown that is affecting the literal reality before them. Some of these individuals are on the edge of death. Some are taking on new practices of meaning. Some have become solipsistic, some have become nihilistic, some are almost returning to an animalistic, vegetable-like state, one that I'll get to. And there's not a prolonged engagement, there's not necessarily an overwhelming feeling of hostility, though there is one of the potential for violence, maybe not human-on-human violence, but a violence of the world. And the novel, the writing itself is largely monosyllabic. You might have noticed that from my reading. So where we are in the point of view of the protagonist, the young girl, it's monosyllabic. But when we get to dialogue, the rare moments of dialogue, we enter into, I guess, what you'd call common dialogue, normal everyday dialogue. But that's extremely brief, and everyone seems to want to be left to their own devices, to their own meaning that they're slowly working out, that maybe has sort of pushed into their brain and they can't avoid. There's talk of anti-spores, pools of blood, and a hum spreading through communication wires. This has altered the written language. This has sort of broken things down, leaving only single syllables behind, hence the monosyllabic point of view. And this is presented in the third-person narration. It results in a rhythm, a sort of hypnosis, a chant-like flow, which feels mythological. And we are given question after question of what is a very unique reading experience. I feel that the monosyllabic form is both hypnotic, and subtly mythological in its sense that it lends itself to, inherently, in the sense of condensing known words down, it lends itself to reverting to pieces of etymology that we inherently understand that actually transform the feel as an in-between of kind of ye olde, maybe even medieval or middle medieval English, mixed with modern, sort of almost modern slang at times. And this in itself begets a linguistic apocalypse and a linguistic breakdown. The work, it's, for me, is actually, more so than many that I've read, immediately various authors came through. The three that came through the most for me, that though they aren't massively well known either, but I've reviewed them all, would be actually Ice by Anna Kavan, which I've been talking about a lot on the podcast, with the overwhelming sense of something unavoidable and of the sense of self not being the priority at all, that the self, whatever that is attempting to drag and coalesce itself as best it can in a world that really doesn't care about it, but is nonchalant. It's not hostile to it. Fleur Yegi as well. This is reminiscent of Fleur Yegi in the sense of not wanting to speak but having to speak, and the language itself being reduced to such a degree that any more and we would just be in silence. And of course, in terms of both the use of language, and the monosyllabic form, and the setting, it's also reminiscent of Ridley Walker by Russell Hoban, which I've reviewed. But unlike Hoban's male protagonist, who is going through an initiatory rite in a new form of world and developing and redeveloping the myth, with a sort of control, with a sort of ability to handle it and mold it as a means for a sort of Bildungsroman trajectory. Here we actually see the inverse, where I believe that the myth, this red spreading north that is infected communication, usurps the human life, usurps humanity and all that is human, which is emphatically one key part is the ability to communicate, to talk, to have language. It usurps that, so the myth, the feeling, the ethereal falling apart of this world is there before those things, but before humanity, and humans have to deal with it. So it's kind of like a British northern post-apocalyptic Yegi. It's also reminiscent in theme to a novel that not many people will have read, but William T. Vollmann's debut novel, You Brighten Risen Angels, especially with its emphasis on nature and forms of communication that are battling. The further element for me, and I'll give one more example of the prose for this, is a childishness, a frivolity, maybe even like a post-apocalyptic frolicking is found from this form of language. For instance, give you an example again of prose here. Night fires glow down pathways, Flo can see to the sides, the flick of flame on dusk trunks, coalwoods singe shine, fat bugs run in cracks. Sparks sail through the wood and out to the plains, pin the skies with titch flames to mock the stars in their heights. The flame light brings out blooms of all hues, bulge as they seep from a day's sleep, dusk a ruse to fire. Spores sneeze from the gapes, hang the pathways, twink in dusklight, gold to fly and take the night. Find a twitch nose, set it right, claim a lung, set in tight. Firelight is warm. Flo tucks her palms in close. She does not want to feel the glow. She knows it's so. Bro does too. She thinks of where he is, and if he has warmth neath the cold stars, neath the gold sparks. Worm heads poke from moss holes, trees and leaves, close entwine with cracks and twists they shut the wood to the rear of Flo. So there is an emphasis on nature, an emphasis of the world taking something back. But amidst this is a play of language and a play in the world that no longer really wants to take some forms of human sincerity and seriousness seriously. And so the human becomes something else, more like an animal, an animal that has to now naturally find its place within the world again without means to dominate. The human being in this piece, in this novella, is no longer the sort of authoritarian force, and myth and nature have been put back almost in their right place, and they aren't doing so violently. Everything else is dissipating and allowing for them to seep back through the cracks. But it's not as if there isn't sort of literal adjacent scenes where we see what might actually be happening to human beings in the usual corporeal reality. For instance, hey, his voice is lukewarm, a fine low bass. Sorry, I can't get up. Haven't got up for a while now. Flo does not know what to say to the man. It looks like he is in too much pain. That pain might have made his mind mad. The way he is calm makes her chill and frown. It's okay. I know I don't look good. I don't hurt. Don't panic or anything. I chose this. It's not like I ended up here by accident. Flo nods like she gets it, but she does not get it at all. Can I help? Do you need something? No, thanks. It's a wonderful thing to be here. A miracle, some would call it. I expected to starve. I wanted to. But when the sunlight comes around, it gives me all I need. It feeds me. Can you believe that? Just light. Quenches my thirst, fills my stomach, and sustains those with me as well. I prayed for them when I thought I would die. You see, I wanted them to have me as food. At least that way I could be useful. Pay them back for what we've done to them. At least then they might survive, long enough to outlive us, be in the world without the poisons we've given them, have a chance. A tear falls from his eye that can see. He nods his head to the cave in his arm. Look inside, you'll see her, she's asleep. I can feel the breathing of sleep as she's curled up in there. Take a look, it's okay, she'd want you to see. Flo steps close and peers at the cave. A small fur beast rests as a fluff ball, breaths of peace in the taut flesh cave of his arm. I know it might seem weird to you. The idea was madness to me at first. I can't let them perish, not when it's my fault. I worked in this fucking factory for over 10 years. When it closed down, I couldn't find another job, not around here. I didn't want to move away, so I lost my flat, everything I owned. This place was empty, falling down, dangerous, condemned. So I came back and lived in this monstrous space. I soon realized I was intruding. Life had taken over the building, hidden. One day I took to this mattress and didn't get up. Living beings started to come out. The more still I was, the more they'd reveal themselves and the closer they'd approach. It was beautiful, a beautiful thing. I started to get the thought that they wanted to see if I was food, and then I realized I wanted to be their food. I'd lay here and listen to my breathing. I hadn't breathed so easy in years. It was as if I'd let go of everything that bothered me. The animals gave me that, the insects, the fungus. I wanted to be a vessel for new growth, so I kept still. That was all I needed to do. And so here we see one of the few characters in these scenes that, well, he's resigned, but not in and not necessarily in an apathetic way, his form of almost hermetic, post-apocalyptic monasticism, you could say, natural, like nature-focused monasticism, is to lay down and allow nature to do what it will. And so the question for the humans left here in this world is one of either you try escape and go somewhere else in some evacuation and continue on as you have, try stay and fight, or maybe have a friction against it, or as with most of them, stay and see what happens as you try coalesce and cohere with this world as part of it. But that would mean resigning, giving up, handing over something about what it is to be human that is so key that we no longer recognize this. Something is gone from these humans that we see that means they're not quite right, but not in some strange, unwell way. They've given themselves over to something, I guess in human terms, not necessarily greater, but something that is patient, something really, I would just say, to nature. They've given themselves over to nature as a form of not primitive return, but of acceptance, and dark, sort of almost black love, you could say. Again, I would want to emphasize that we in witnessing the last remnants of human beings here fade into nature, in a novella that, as I've already said, just asks questions. And I think if you don't seek to answer them, then you can allow the world just to speak for itself. But I think there is a subtle answer here, that in this return, yes, there's danger. There is possibly even terror, maybe subtle hints of horror, of a return to a myth that no longer has the comfort and control that we're used to. But because of that, and in that, the play of language equally has its inverse, which is a frolicking and a joy and a childishness of the language. So there isn't necessarily a hostility. It's that child's ability, I think, to have a certain naivety of the new world and to see what will come of it, and not to be spooked and needlessly scared in the sense of trying to hold on to the old world when new forms of this new world arise, even if those forms are quite literally growing through a human or growing into the human, into language itself, is to go with them and to become and grow with the new myth that is arising. That's what I'd have to say. It's a short, fascinating, again hypnotic, post-apocalyptic novella where everything is dissipating in the most beautiful way, and you just get to be in this world, and it's a world that you want to return to, in its strangeness. But it's a short book, and this would be a short review. But I would like there to be more eyes on both Tangerine Press and this book. So I'm very thankful for Gransden for sending a copy over to me. I'm very thankful that I got the chance to read it. Again, like those authors that I mentioned that I feel are like this work, if you like that, you like experimental literature and a post-apocalyptic narrative that really I don't think isn't deserving of the name post-apocalyptic, because that's too brash and crass. So sort of gentle apocalypse, but a gentle apocalypse isn't an apocalypse, because there's an acceptance, there's a vulnerability of what's coming through the world, even if, again, there is a harshness possibly to it, a harshness that is natural and will give something new if, much like many of the characters in this book, you make the choice of allowing nature, allowing this spread, investigating it naturally. But those are my thoughts on Rebecca Gransden's Figures Crossing the Field Towards the Group. I hope you enjoyed this little review. Thank you.